Welcome to Activating Your Voice.
Thank you. Thank
It's
you.
great. Thank you. You're welcome. Activating Your Voice is something that you and I talked about many years now, and it's something that I got reinforced again this morning before I came on here by another one of my clients. And Activating Your Voice is part of a new brand that I'm about to talk about as we go on through this conversation and this year. It's really around how do you take what you have, as in your stories, your experiences, and activate them, bring them to stage, start speaking about them, sharing them effectually to get others to move on and progress in their own lives. And so this morning we are in the series of forgiveness and mindset. We've taken it to YouTube. My name is Dr. Ava Eagle Brown, and I'm newly called the Activate Your Voice Coach. That's something I'm going to be adding to my name very shortly. I'm a book mentor, midwife. I'm a speaker, an author, and a mother. But all in all, everything I do under all of that umbrella is all around activating your voice to activate your life. And so I'm joined by my best friend and by one of my former clients, Audrey Joseph. And we're going to be talking today about a really broad spectrum of topics over the series, actually, around forgiveness, but also mindset. And so, Audrey, welcome to the program. I'm so excited to have you here. I know we've been doing them on LinkedIn.
Hi.
Thank you very much, girl. I know we've been doing them on LinkedIn and they've been really progressive and really well, but we felt that Instagram was a place that we needed to talk about this a little bit more, as more and more persons were inboxing us saying, we need to talk about this. So today's topic, before I
Yes.
allow you to introduce yourself, because you need to introduce yourself, honey, we're talking about
Okay.
how do you forgive the person who has been sexually abusive to you? How do you forget? How do you forgive? How do you forget? How do you move on? And so, without any further ado, I'm going to hand this over to you, Audrea. So please introduce yourself, and then we're going to take it away.
Greetings. It's Audrey Joseph here, known as the Forgiveness Godmother. And I speak about the art of letting go. I'm also an award-winning author. Two books written through Dr. Ava Brown. Yeah. And yes, we've shifted platform. To those who are saying good afternoon, I know you're in the UK, so yes, good afternoon to you, but good evening, good morning, good night, wherever you are joining us from in the world, or if you're watching the replay, and sending greetings and love, light, and upliftment to you all. So yes, the conversation is about forgiving sexual abuse. Big
Yes,
topic.
big
Very, very
topic.
big topic.
It's such a
I
big
know
topic.
I never seem to do an amazing job of introducing myself, but I usually say to people that you get to know me through my conversation as we journey through. So I
Great.
hope you stay with us and you will get to find out who I am during that journey.
Thank you, Audrey. And as I speak about activating your voice, I remember when I met you, you had a big voice, but it wasn't activated. And so we did that through. You probably want to you probably want to talk about that because I don't like to toot my own horn sometimes, you know.
That is funny, actually. Every time I remember that, I'm 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 extroverted and introvert, which is rather a dichotomy of a conversation. I'm great. The one thing, before this was now. To see me doing this and speaking to lots of people is quite surprising to me because I was very shy, but it was about having a fear of judgment in my head. Now, actually, having Ava as my coach has given me a lot of confidence, and so my personal voice has been activated, and not just activated in an ability to speak via these types of platforms, because I remember the first time I had to speak, I was so nervous, like this.
Like Jello, it was
I
like
remember Ava
wobbly.
said to me, she said to me, you're going to have to get rid of that. You're going to have to get rid of that because you need to get your voice out there. You need to get your message across. So being nervous is not going to serve you. Totally correct. And I'm so grateful that I had her to hold my hand and to coach me through that journey. I'm quite confident now, but like I said, with introductions, I don't speak about all
We're
the
gonna
stuff.
we're gonna work on
But as I
that.
say, through the journey, you get to know me.
We're gonna work on that
Can you repeat
because
that?
yeah, we're gonna work on that. We're gonna work on the introduction part. This morning, guys, if I look tired, it's because I'm tired. I was up with a client in the UK from 1 o'clock Jamaican time until 3 o'clock Jamaican time, and I was preparing her for a speech. And sometimes I even doubt myself. And she called me back, really, really educated doctor. And she called me back and she said, "You are magic. Ava, you are just such magic. You need to start training people about the technique of how to speak." And I'm not saying that I'm the best speaker, but I have the technique of getting you to do it well. And she said, "You found my unique voice, and I turned up there. You calmed me, and you taught me certain things about the pregnant pause. You taught me about the dip theory." Girl, I was so tired. I was as tired as a cat slumbered in sleep and could not even find herself. And she said, "Ava, you actually activated my voice today." And so today I literally decided that, you know what? I've heard this one too many times. So we're going to work on that introduction because it's really important that we get that piece right. But you're doing a good job. We just need to get it excellent. Now,
I'm doing my thing, sister.
you're doing your thing, honey. Now, the reason that we're here, Audrea, is because both of us. So she talked about me being her coach. Audrey has been my forgiveness coach, and one of the reasons that I'm so excited and so definitively steadfast about having these conversations around forgiveness is because I have seen what it has done for my life. When I met Audrea, I was a coach. I was doing very well. I was making good money. I was on stage, but my chest was heaving and I carried around this amount of weight and I had so much anger and resentment and upset. And when you go through my kind of life, it's not very difficult to end up in that space. And so, although I was working with Audrey on her book, she was observing that I needed help. And the thing about understanding that I've learned from her, by the way, I'm not going to take any kudos for this. I've come to learn from Audrea that in life you're either teaching or you're learning. So, whilst I was the teacher, I also became the student. And I'm glad for that because so often, so many of us are not able to be the student. We always want to be the teacher. And it's through my forgiveness journey with Audrea when I can sit here categorically, unashamedly, unapologetically, and genuinely, sincerely, honestly say to you that there's not one person in the world that I have here anymore. Now, it doesn't mean that people have not done me things, that there are things that I'm not upset about, that there are things that don't rattle my feathers a little bit, that I don't get upset and I don't have indifference with people. However, I am able to literally rectify them in my mind and in myself and with people and resolve conflicts. And so I no longer carry around that humpback of Notre Dame situationship in my life when it comes to forgiving people. And one of the persons that I should have found it really difficult to forgive is my ex-husband. But now I have compassion for the guy. And so, Audra, it was based on that fact that I have a mindset of, you need to do, you can get up and do. And you are around, forgiveness is key for us to thrive in our lives, our relationships, and our businesses. Because the moment I had been coached by Audrea, and Audrey, I want to thank you. I know I've thanked you, but I want to thank you again. Because the moment I was coached by you on the art of letting go, my business started to flourish. It made way for me. And so today we're talking about forgiveness first, Audrea, by asking you the question as the forgiveness godmother, who you were named actually by one of your clients who I know very well, is how and why is forgiveness so important for us to thrive in life, in business, relationships, and well-being? Why is it so important? Tell us why.
It's really important, and I really speak nowadays especially about the art of letting go, because I realized that the moment I started saying forgiveness, people had religious connotations attached to it. And that's not the space or place that I come from with this conversation. Now, the art of letting go, I'm virtually talking about what you're holding within. Now, I've studied the science of us holding on to things that have hurt us in our past, whether that's through childhood, whether that's through past relationships, past jobs, whatever the circumstance or situation has been. It's what I've found is the damage that it can cause internally. And externally, we're reacting and we're moving through simply based upon unconscious behaviors as well. So sometimes we're not actually recognizing that we are behaving in a particular way simply because of our past and what we've held on to. So that creates a false personality. In my own case, being a battered child for 10 years at the hands of my mother, I was resentful, I was angry, and so I had not forgiven that situation. And whenever I remembered it or related it, I would act angrily. And the people who were around me, that surrounded me, would see me from an anger perspective. And I didn't understand it, and they would be getting it. I'd be verbal or just even in my energy or attitude. And I would be that way unconsciously because I had not addressed the situation that I'd gone through. I didn't even equate it to that.
Right.
So that was one. And then I found out as I got older and I started various different businesses and different interactions, that everything that I tried, it would succeed until a certain point, and then I would be failing and then trying again and failing and trying again. And I didn't recognize until I got to a certain point in life, and I can speak about that at a later stage. But I got to a certain point where I started realizing that these things, I would class them as various anchors that were holding me back, holding me down. And so once you find the ability, the technique, the skill, whatever it is, to cut those anchors free, what happens is your life becomes more buoyant. You become more buoyant in everything that you do.
Yes.
And so it leads to success, a success mindset.
Yes.
I'm going to hand to you, Dr.
Yes.
Byrne.
I love what you said, Audrey, that there were certain anchors. And some of us feel that those anchors are good anchors because they're comfortable and they're safe and they're what we're used to. And the reality is that we are afraid. It's normally, I think sometimes unforgiveness is fear to it. Sometimes it's fear. It's fear of what am I going to end up with? What's going to happen? How are they going to react? And also, unforgiveness is feeling that you are drinking this venom and the other person is going to be the one who's going to be poisoned, right? And I love the fact that you said that you got to a certain point. These things work to a certain point, because in my own life, having been sexually abused by not just one, many people actually, to include my own husband at the time, who actually had sex with me while I slept. I have a poem in my book, the Thoughts and Musing of Ava Brown, that spoke to the fact that it's called While I Slept. I was sleeping. So that's not consensual, right? And so there's a lot of anger and upset that was there for me by the number of abuse that I went through. And I have come to learn that the body keeps score. So I was walking around, let's be vulnerable. Can we be vulnerable, Audrey? Yeah? I was walking around in
we're in this space
my 6-inch heels all over the world, speaking and training and coaching and talking about my story. But I wasn't healed inside. I had unforgiveness inside of me. My mindset was saying, I can tell you how to shift your mind. I can tell you how to start writing your story. I can tell you to do all of these things. But within myself, my mind was saying, nope, I'm angry. Nope, you did me wrong. Until I recognized that, until I met this woman, you can't continue like that, Ava. No, 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 you can't. And the reality is, sometimes you don't want to let it go because that person has hurt you so much. And you feel like you need to carry that around forever because they have hurt you so much. How could you rape me when you're meant to protect me? How could you have fondled me when you are meant to be my parent in absentia? How could you do these things to me? How? And so in your mind, you're very angry because you don't even want to reconcile because the anger makes you feel like they've been punished. When in truth and in fact, you are punishing yourself. And so forgiving your sexual abuser is challenging. I can't stand there and tell you it's a snap easy, light a candle and it's done. Because that's a lie, Audra, correct? It's not simple.
It is a complete lie.
But it is possible to forgive your perpetrator. Now, let me be very clear. Forgiveness doesn't mean that you're going to reconcile with them. I'm not here saying to you, oh, because you forgive them, you're going to become friends. That's not what we're saying. We're saying you need to heal that part of yourself that carry that venom around and recognize that when you forgive them, you're opening up yourself to love, to abundance, to healing, and to possibilities, and you are freeing your health to be at its maximum. Audra, do you want to take that over and kind of add your piece to that part?
Yeah, sure. Certainly. It's not letting someone off the hook.
Yes.
Because a lot of people choose not to forgive, to release, to let go, simply because they think that if we think this way or we way, then we're letting someone off the hook. It has nothing actually to do with that person. It has everything to do with you, your mental health, your spiritual health, your physical health, your whole life health from every aspect and every angle and every level. Now, I was listening to Dr. Brand speak, and I was actually saying we have to include the men in this conversation as well, because men have been abused too. And so I would like to acknowledge that men have been sexually abused. Some of them have been physically abused, and some of them have been mentally abused.
Emotionally.
By women.
Financially.
Through the sexualization of how we can be in the feminine. Right, so we're not forgetting the men. Right, so when we speak about this sexual violation, we're not just speaking, it's just from a woman's perspective.
No,
because
absolutely
I've
not.
coached men too. I've coached men, I've counseled, because before I became a coach, I went to university and became a counselor in 1992. So I've been doing this for a very, very long time. And I've come across many different situations and scenarios. So men can be sexually abused too. And when we talk about sexual abuse, sometimes it's not just in the physical, it's a mental sexual abuse too. So, someone can get it physically, mentally, emotionally. It can be abused in many different ways. So I would like to share that. Please do excuse. I am in Birmingham city centre in the UK, so if you hear background noise, we have a tram going across. So I'm in my office at the moment, and we have the tram. Can't help that situation.
That's okay. We'll forgive you. We'll forgive you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so we are actually mentioning the brothers as well. We're not forgetting them. We're speaking from a feminine place. I was sexually abused as a child, fondled and molested at the age of 3, and actually physically sexually abused by someone who was supposed to be considered a father figure at the age of 8. Now, how do you deal with that? How do you cope with being a child and someone away your innocence. Well, this is a conversation, like the title said, and in the write-up in it, we are speaking about hidden and unspoken conversations. We're delving deep into this. And if you have a question as well, you can type it in. How did you get there, Audra? How did you do this, Dr. Brown? We've both written books and we've both spoken about our abuse. And I've found that when you speak about abuse, people tend to recoil within themselves simply because it's a hidden conversation, especially in the Caribbean families. Uncle touch you here, uncle does this there, or someone will say, don't go around that particular cousin or that uncle or something. And it's usually the abusers usually come within our families. So, don't talk about your business outside of the family.
It's taboo.
But what I found was, it's a taboo. But what I found is talking about it has been the greatest therapy for me. Talking about it, in fact, writing about it was the most liberating experience that I had, because it was a closed topic, and because it was so closed and I didn't want to admit it to myself, that's what caused my internal anger. Just trying to keep it to myself, or maybe share it among a couple or a few people, but actually just saying it out loud. It just gave me a liberty, a freedom, and it actually helped me not to think that I was going crazy, insane. So that's part of it, but I'm going to hand it back to you, Dr. Brown. What are you saying on the topic?
So thank you so much, Audrey. You said so much that I want to talk about, so thank you. You spoke about the fact that the men are involved, and I'm glad you did that, because this is a conversation. These topics we're going to be delving into are not just designed for women, because so often, and I'm not being horrible here, we there's more focus placed on women in these conversations, and the men are pushed to the back and they are forgotten about. And the reality is, I would not be surprised if more men are abused than we know, because especially in the Caribbean, Afro-Caribbean background or society or environment, our boys are taught very early, don't cry. Big men, tough boys don't cry. And so our men have grown up in this fashion of feeling as though they are not to express emotions, that they're sissies if they were to cry, they're sissies if they complain. And so we don't realize the damage that does to our boys. And so they grow up into men who are being abused a lot of times, not just sexually, not just somebody hold you and rape you or have sex with you or sexual contact that you did not consent, but our men are being abused emotionally. When we as women speak down to our men, when we disrespect them, when we don't cook dinner for them, when we don't do the things that we ought to do as wives, when we withhold sex because we're angry, sex becomes a tool. That is abuse to our men. And a lot of us do not realize that. That's abuse. And it's not okay to use your body as a tool like that. Because if you're in a union, you should learn conflict resolution, and you should learn how to talk it through. I am a big sucker for talking it out. Baby, let's talk it out. That's me. I want to talk it out. It doesn't mean that it's always the right moment, and sometimes you have to let it simmer, but you should not be using your body as a spiteful tool. And that's abuse to our partner, be it male or female. And so one of the things that I think, and I know that I'm gonna literally segue a little bit here, but the reason we have so much mental health issues in some of our men is purely from the point of view that from they were boys, they were taught to not express how they feel because it's not okay. And so our men are internalizing their trauma. They're internalizing their pain. They're carrying it around, and even to their own male friends sometimes, they are afraid to explode and just unbag themselves because it is seen as weak. And we need to have that kind of conversation where our men find it permissible to have that dialogue. We need to create those safe spaces in our relationships, be it mother, sister, husband, wife, whatever we are, for our men to show up and speak non-judgmentally. So I wanted to just talk about that part for a moment because it's really important. And I think that if we start that conversation, we are going to be able to get our men healed emotionally and mentally, and we're going to have more balanced relationships. They're going to be better fathers, they're going to be better lovers, and they're going to be better husbands, uncles, whatever, managers, whatever. Now, unforgiveness, when you have forgiveness issues in your relationships because of the sexual violence you encountered, you are going to show up angry. You're going to go to work and certain things are going to trigger you. And we talked about this the other day on LinkedIn, Audrey, that some managers who are at work in their big positions are unhealed. They're very unhealed. And sometimes when they have conflicts, they instantly want to fire you or find a justification to let go of you, not because of anything you have done, but because in their womb, and we're going to talk about womb another week, in the womb of the mind and in the physical womb sometimes, they are carrying that poison, that venom. And so, Audrey, I just spoke about the fact that, you literally got molested by people you know. The fact remains, and the statistics have shown, that most children, most adults get molested and abused by somebody they know. Because a lot of times it comes and it hits you unaware because you're not expecting that person. I'm not expecting you to do that to me. You're not expecting that person. So a lot of times we trust our children, we entrust our children in the care of Uncle So and Uncle Sam and Uncle Jack and Auntie Jennifer. And nowadays, because of sexuality and all that's happening around the fluidity of sexuality, there was a time when you would say to your daughter, please be careful of Uncle Sam. But now you're saying to your son, be careful of Uncle Jack. Because we're in a different kind of space. And so I want to use this moment, having been abused myself, and I know Audra will give her 2 cents on it as well. This is my 2 cents in terms of, I say to parents, know where your children are. Know where they're going to go and sleep over if you allow sleepover. Because kids are trusting to people they know. And I am totally against the let us sit on Uncle Jack's lap. And there are some fathers, there's a video, there's something on YouTube, on Amazon, on Instagram last week here in the Caribbean where a father seemingly was, and allegedly, I'm using the word allegedly, was allegedly having sex with his daughter. And she allegedly had taken it to the CPS, Child Protection Services. And allegedly they did nothing about it. And so she allegedly, there's a recording that she literally recorded her father trying to have sex with her. It's on Instagram. If you want me to tag you, I can tag you in it. And you could hear what sounded like he opened the condom. And he's saying to his daughter, it can't go in, it can't go in. And she said, Daddy, don't do it, Daddy, stop. And for some of you, this will be very upsetting, so please forgive me, but I have to hone home the point. And it went on for about a good 5 minutes. And the father went on to say to the young girl that if he invests so much in her, if he gives her so much, if he puts food on the table and all the things that he does for her, what is she going to do for him? And she said, Daddy, I don't understand. And he said to her, you don't know what a man wants from a woman, And it was uncomfortable to listen to because it triggered me. But I'm making the point to say sometimes as children who are not yet developed mentally, and I'm talking about children here for a second because we're going to go on to the disabled and the vulnerable in a minute. But as children who are not developed yet mentally, sometimes when we look at the people who are our parents, in whether they're biological or not, our caregivers, and they put that kind of conversation to us, we feel like it's okay because it's daddies, aunties, uncle. They feed me, they clothe me. And then talk about the people who are vulnerable, who are mentally challenged and all that kind of thing. And then talk about adults and sometimes women who need to provide. How this can look and feel and make you vulnerable And it doesn't make that you are complicit. It just makes that sometimes you're vulnerable because of the people who are involved in the equation. Audrey, I want to hand that over to you because I know I can see that you're ready to come on that one, girl.
Yeah, whilst you were speaking, I was actually thinking about when someone ends up in a relationship with someone who has been abused. How do you, you know, work with that as well? That is another arena to have a discussion about, because you could end up in a relationship with someone and they are you can end up with from one extreme to the next. You can end up with someone in a relationship who someone may consider you very frigid. You're not very sexual, you're not very out there, you're not very this, you're not really going with the flow of the sex. Or someone's in a relationship and you're thinking, oh, why is this person so stiff, or why, in their energy and everything towards it. Now the relationship's great conversationally, you have a fun time, everything, but when it comes to the sexual aspect of it, they can seem very cold. Or you get the other extreme where they are overly sexual. Now both of these can actually be an indication that, I'm not saying in every aspect, but it depends on what kind of relationship, because when you go into a relationship now, it has to, a lot of people who've been through sexual abuse have lost trust.
Yes.
So getting into a relationship, it takes time to build trust. Now, you on the other end, you know nothing about what's happened to this person. And so you could be interpreting a relationship that she don't trust me, or he don't trust me, or and because you're projecting this lack of trust energy, they're not actually understanding that it's simply because you have been abused and they've not trusted you enough in the relationship to divulge that information. So what you're interpreting it as is not real. So it's from one extreme, I know of people who have been sexually abused and they move from partner to partner to partner because they don't really want a relationship. It's just been I don't know, because I can't speak to someone else's mind, but it's just appeared on the outside that it's just about sex. But I know that it runs deeper than that. There is that. And also, my other conversation is about the conversations that we hold around children and to children. We are living in a time where our children are so exposed to so much. And so sexual abuse can happen and they can normalize it.
Yes.
So there is this thing about normalizing, and, the rules of in so many arenas and areas now where someone, I'm in my 60s, and someone now in the 60s, 50s, 40s can turn around and say, well, I identify as a teenager. And so we're all having to accept this new definition. And that means that you can be having a because someone as a grown person is saying, I identify as this, I identify as that. So there's a lot more to the conversation, and I know there's a lot more threads to it than when I was younger, because of how we are as a society now. So there are some things that are becoming normalized. I know a lot of children now are seeing a lot of pornography, which wasn't around digitally when I was young, because it was more the Playboy magazines when I was growing up, and various different publications, and they were kept on the top shelf. Well, nowadays nothing's on the top shelf, so the top shelf meant that children couldn't see it and children couldn't get to it. But now they have access, and there is actually statistically where they're saying that children now, a high percentage of children are are exposed to pornography and all of that. And that changes the culture, because then the sexual abuse is not sometimes between adults. Sexual abuse is happening between children to children, simply because of what they're hearing, experiencing, reading, watching, and seeing. So now the whole thing has turned in a different way. And now, me being a grandmother, I listen to my grandchildren's conversations differently. I I am seeing their interactions differently on a different level. So now we all having to look out in the world through different lenses, or else we're gonna miss something.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, you said so much, and I took notes because I had to, because there are 5 points that I want to address. The first point that you talked about that I want to talk about is that you trust in relationships. I remember when I got sexually abused the first time, I literally went mute. I went mute. I went mute. It's almost like I lost my voice. And this is why the brand that I'm now going to be creating, called Activate Your Voice to Activate Your Life, is really fundamental, because I had to activate my voice. The second thing I learned in that was trust no one. I had trust issues, trust no one. The third thing I learned was it's my fault. I felt guilty because I grew up in the Caribbean at the time when there was a heavier taboo. I'm not trying to say the taboo is lifted, but there was a heavier taboo around the subject of sexual abuse. And so I dare not open my mouth to utter this to anyone. And I was thinking about something this morning, and I'm going to be very transparent about it, and I don't want to go off track. But I was thinking about something this morning, about something that I'm going through in my life right now, and the fact that I wanted to share it with somebody yesterday, and something in me said, no, don't. And it's the same feeling I had when I was a youngster going to high school, that when I wrote my book, The Mango Girl, there are so many people who I was really close to who said, oh my God, but we didn't know that was happening. And I realized this morning that that went back to when I was abused, that I learned to keep things and don't tell anybody. So to the point where when my book was written, there were some people who said it was a lie. It wasn't a lie. It's just that I learned through my abuser not to divulge certain things. And so even now, it's been good and bad, because there's some things that are happening in my life right now that I don't want to share with anybody, or I don't want to share with everybody. And there are just the very close people to me that know that these things are happening. So I always call somebody like Audrea. She's my silent witness, you all. She is my silent witness, because there are things that I'll share about my life later on in my life that people will tell me categorically that I'm lying, to the point where she insists that I keep a video diary, which I've not been so good at lately. Let me put my lip gloss on, because I know I'm going to get cussed out for that. But I've not been so good at that, because I learned to be mute. I learned to trust no one. And I learned that it was my fault. And so for a long time, those three things became a part of my life. Now, I want to go to talking about relationships and sex. And you spoke about intimacy, because it's not just sex, it's intimacy. For a long time, you couldn't touch my breast because I was uncomfortable, because my father had it in his mouth, and it should never be in my father's mouth. So even I had to work on that. And so I was in relation. I had Audra, we talked about this, and it's okay, you have my permission. I remember saying to you that I had commitment issues, not that I was promiscuous, because I was never promiscuous, but I would get bored. Do you remember? I would like a guy, and very quickly I got very bored of him. And I remember you saying to me, Ava, you need to really sit down in stillness and figure out where this came from. And for me, when I sat in stillness, I realized it came from my abuse situationship. I just got very bored very easily. But in my relationships that I had sexually, I found that I struggled for a very long time with intimacy, especially with my last husband. I struggled because I didn't trust him at one point in our relationship. And so when you don't trust somebody, sometimes it reminds you, yeah, of why you didn't trust those people. So I didn't trust him. And he would throw back my abuse in my face and then wanted to come and have sex with me. that
Yeah,
was
this is the one.
abuse. So
Yes.
how do you then throw back something that's hurtful to me at me,
Hmm.
then you want me to be intimate with you? So I
Yeah.
had those issues. Now the other thing is, we talk about children. I just did one of my clients did a presentation this morning, and it was around social media and stuff. One of the big things that we have to watch out for our children is sexting, where is sex texting, because that's sexual abuse. Because kids are being asked, so it's mild when it is people they know and it's not okay, but it's mild. But when they're now asked to send naked pictures to people they don't know, that is sexual abuse. And so we have to be
Yes.
very conscious about having those conversations with our children and being able to
Hmm.
explain to them what is not okay. We have to know what they're watching. We're going to talk about that another time. The last piece I
Yeah.
want to add before I close my mouth so Audrey can speak is that in forgiving your sexual abuser, we have to do restorative justice, if that is applicable here. Because we have to get to the place where we are going to realize that we cannot continue on this path, because we're going to end up with a lot of broken people around. There are lots of us who are broken, and we are putting on. Audrey and I had a conversation before I came on here, and we were talking about, how people like myself and Audrey have so much content and so much good stuff, but because we're not in the glamour of Instagram, we don't come on here with the mascara and the lashes and all of the fancy, the paraphernalias. Some people will not even look at us because we don't have all the backdrop and all the lighting and all the things. And the reality is that there are so many people on this Instagram lifestyle who are broken people. When they
Yes.
finish this live and they switch off the camera, they cry and they are broken people. And the sad thing is that we've been cultured to look so much at those people and look away from those who
Hmm.
don't have great lighting like myself and don't have on the long
Hmm.
lashes
Hmm.
and the makeup is not done and I'm a
Hmm.
little bit old woman here, and we're not looking there because it is not attractive. And that's some of what lures our girls into becoming sexually abused, and our boys as
Hmm.
well, because they
Hmm.
are chasing the glitz and the glamour. Can I just have a hallelujah right there?
Hmm.
Because that is the
Oh yes,
reality.
sister.
Take it away, Audrey. Take it away, honey. Take it away.
It's in fact what I consider myself a diamond in the rough. I can work with that.
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
but it's a fact. And earlier at the top you were talking about managers and different people you could be working for. Now, this is in the workplace. Sexual abuse has happened to a wide spread of people now. Imagine working for a boss who has been sexually abused, and they're just aggressive and horrible to work with. That's a very difficult scenario because they have not addressed their own stuff.
Yes.
Some bosses you get and you're thinking, why are they so bitter? Why are they so angry? And you have no idea. Let's say because I'm the feminine energy, so we're talking about a woman and she's high powered and she's got her red bottom shoes on and she's got her lashes and her hair is doing and she's got her stiletto nails and she's got everything looking poised. But this woman has been sexually abused. What energy does she put out in the workplace?
Mm.
This is why we're having this conversation today. We are talking about the art of letting go.
From the
Now,
mind.
someone who has not let go, what kind of mindset do they bring to the workplace?
Yes.
What kind of mindset do they bring to the company?
Yes.
Because broken people hurt people, hurt people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say that again. Hurt people hurt people.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my sexual abuse, right, I did not remember that I had been physically sexually abused at the age of 8 until I was 18 years old. I was a teen mom. I gave birth to my first child at the age of 18. That was when I realized I had been sexually abused. What a time to start recognizing that you're sexually abused. Why? Because I had to give birth.
Mm-hmm.
And in giving birth, that awoken something within me. Now, the shame of that and the shock of that. In fact, it was the shock first and then the shame, because I actually thought, no, I'm having a false memory. And so I was in denial.
Yes.
But before that, the person that I was aggressive. During the whole period, in fact, not even after I'd had my son, I was angry before I got to the space of forgiveness. So I would be the one maybe in the office and dressed and looking a particular way and being a total witch. Being a total BI witch. You know, I was there and I would be angry and aggressive and what have you. And so we don't understand sometimes the people that we're interacting with,
Yes.
what their backstory is.
Yes.
We have no idea of the people that we are surrounded. It could even be your own brother or sister. We don't share because I did not share with my brothers and sisters. My younger brother, when he actually, when it was all opened up and discovered, he said, that's why you were so angry.
Yes.
That's why you were so aggressive. Because I had not shared that with them.
Yes.
Because I didn't know for 10 years.
Yes.
It was trapped in my mind, locked. And it was locked in my mind, I recognized through doing psychology and various therapies, was because my mind had to protect my mind.
I wrote that down just now because I
So it
wanted to talk
closed.
about it. Yes.
Yeah, my mind closed that incident down. But my emotions knew. And my unconscious mind knew that I had been violated as a child. And the outward expression was anger, violent, and just verbally, you know, not a nice person. And for a very long time, I didn't even know how to smile. Now you see Audrey today, the Audrey of today, I'm always smiling. And that's because I found a way to release and let go of that anger. Now, like I said, that wasn't letting someone off the hook. That was me allowing myself to breathe again. When I released it from within, when I let it go, I allowed me to have a new life. I gave myself permission to live again.
Nice.
And how did we do those therapies? Yeah, that's conversation for another time.
Wow.
Dr. Brown, I'm going to move it back to you.
I love this ball of tennis we're playing because I have to be taking notes because I've got menopause brain, y'all. But I love you talking about the release. You know, how do we release things? Because we have to learn to release it. But I wrote that the mind protected you because I remember so if you read my book, Bamboo and Fern, you'll never, oh my God, I've got Mango Girl here. I'm so excited. I've got a copy. Thank you. My client sent me a copy. My son's here's the embarrassing part. So my son's head teacher just gave this back to me 2 days ago. And she said to me, Dr. Brown, oh, by the way, if you haven't seen my book, it's The Mango Girl. It's my life story. So there you are. And she said, I cannot reconcile the person I'm seeing and how you're performing to the story I've just read. It doesn't add up for me. And I said to Mrs. Robinson, I said, you have not read anything yet because the next 2 books that I'm writing, oh my God. If you thought this was hard, honey, brace yourself. It's like when you're on the plane and they say brace, brace. Trust me, y'all, you got to brace, brace, brace for my next 2 books. But I said, when I was writing The Mango Girl, I remember I wrote Bamboo and Fern first. And there's something I do when I coach people into book writing and into speaking as well about finding your unique voice. And when I found my voice in Bamboo and Fern, is a different experience. I think as you age and you get more experience at certain things, your voice changes. So when I did find my voice in this, if you read Bamboo and Fern, you'd never know I was abused unless you were highly intelligent because of how I wrote it. You had to decipher. But in this one, I had to come out and dig deep. And so it was crazy how the universe works and how God works and how nature works and how the alignment works. Because I had to get somebody, Audrey, to sit with me, the editor, and pull out the moment I got raped at gunpoint. Little did I know that and I was wondering, how could she do it so easily? Like, seriously, like something, this girl knew it too well. She must have been there. But I discovered that sometimes in life, people gravitate to your story because your story is their story. And within your story, there's an overlap of their story. So she was abused. And so she could articulate my emotions, what I was feeling for me, in a way that I couldn't fathom. And so, what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that in that figuring it out with her, I remembered stuff that I never remembered in my entire life. I remember my uncle's best friend took me to the cane fields. I was 15 years old. My uncle's best friend. Now, I was living with my uncle, so I felt guilty. I can't tell him because I would have nowhere to live. And for you who know my story, you know that moving around was my regular denominator. So I remember this only a few years ago when the lady sat with me to pull out my story. So that's one, the mind protects you. And there are some people walking around who are aggressive, who are bitter, miserable, and they don't know why. And for some of them, men and women alike, it's because they were abused. But the mind has blocked it. And this is why I'm a big advocate for coaching and mentoring and counseling and accountability and therapy. I'm psychotherapy. I'm really big on that, and writing and all of that. I'm big on activating your voice. Whatever medium you choose to do it in, that's fine. It's important because the body keeps score. That's one point.
Yes.
The other thing I wanted to talk about was we need to peel off the onion. What do I mean by that? Sometimes we need to peel back and strip ourselves naked and really come to where we are, accept what has happened, take our blame if we have blame in it, but we need to do self-forgiveness. Self-forgiveness is so big. I, for a long time, felt it was my fault. I did something wrong. I wore too much short shorts. So today, I've just started wearing short shorts again because, girls kind of finding her edge, But I never used to wear short shorts because it made me feel as though by wearing them, I was putting eyes on me. And that's why this happened to me. So I had this negative relationship with short shorts. Hot pants, Jamaicans call it batty riders. Of course, I would wear them around the house, not outside. But I had a problem with that for a very long time because I'm a thick girl. I'm thick, I've got thick thighs and, a nice buttocks. So I'm careful, it's my fault. But God made me that way, right? So we're just having those real conversations, right? We said that. So we need to do self-forgiveness. It is really important that we do that and release. If you don't release this stuff, you can't go to the grave with them. If you go to the grave with all this unforgiveness because you were sexually abused, then you're not hurting the perpetrator. You're hurting you. You're shortchanging your partners. You're shortchanging your family, your children from having the best of you. Let me repeat that. When you find it difficult to forgive your abuser, male or female, it doesn't matter who, you are robbing your friends from having the best of you. You're robbing your husbands or your wives from having the best of you, your partners, your children, your grandchildren, your employer, your employees, your co-workers. Your future. You're robbing your business from succeeding. You are robbing your mind from being at peace. You are robbing yourself. And until you come to the place where you recognize that it doesn't serve you to keep robbing you. Why would you go to the bank and leave money at the cash point every time? Come on now. Because that's what you're doing. You're robbing yourself.
Yeah.
You're going to the cash point, you put in your card, you take out the money, £20 comes out, you only take 5. You're leaving 15. You're robbing yourself. Because one day that bank is going to be empty. What am I trying to say? Your body keeps score. And you're not giving your best self to the world. So you have to understand that self-forgiveness is really important. I'm going to give my last remarks. Yes, darling.
Also, I would like to interject in there.
Sure.
In saying that this starts with self-love.
Yes.
everything that we are speaking about today starts with the self.
Yes.
You see, if you don't have self-love, there is no way you can forgive anything. There's no way you're going to let anything
But
go.
Audrey, I'm gonna stop you for a second there. I'm gonna interject before you go there. When Audrey, let's be real. When these kind of shenanigans happen to you, you lose self-confidence.
Yes.
You lose
All the
self-love,
selves.
especially if you didn't like me. I didn't know what self-love was, honey. So we have to backtrack a little bit before we even get to losing. I want you to address the fact that when these things happen to you, I, for a long time, would never strip naked in front of anybody. I had to be very comfortable with my partner to let him see me naked.
Yeah. Likewise.
And when I found somebody that I could just be myself with warts and all, I knew. I knew, right? I didn't need any more answers. That was it for me. So we have to go back to that part, Audrey. So don't forget your chain of thoughts, but talk about what happens
Yes.
when this happens to you. You lose self-confidence.
If you never had it in the first place, if you come from a space where you've not seen it, you don't understand self-love. And I came from a space where the women had gone through a lot of that. So there was no way they were going to be able to teach me about self-love. Now, lots of stuff that I'm sitting here saying just sounds like it's word and it's things. I took years. It was a journey of years. The reason why Dr. Brown and myself come in this space to share is that it doesn't take you years.
Anymore.
In my case, it took me about 50 years to get to the place. Now, I'm not desiring for anybody, male, female, to take 50 years, because that, as Dr. Brown was saying, you're losing, you're not giving the best of who you are
Absolutely
to the
not.
world or to yourself.
Not.
For me, I'm living my best life now. I'm living my best life now because I found self-love, or self-love found me.
Yes.
Let's say it that way.
But you had to do
Self-love
work.
found me.
But you had to do
But I
work.
had to work.
Yes.
I had to be aware of what had built me into the angry person, what had caused me, because there's a saying of getting sick and tired of being sick and tired. I was sick and tired of being sick and tired, and so watching programs, for me, my deliverance wasn't in, it was watching Oprah. That was my awakening. And then finding self-help books, finding lots of different spaces and mediums. That's what started my journey, because I knew something wasn't right, because there was an imbalance within me.
Yes.
Because you can't just be sad all your life and angry all your life. That means something's wrong.
Yes.
What brings you joy? I couldn't tell you what brought me joy then, because I didn't understand it.
Wow.
But then when I started questioning those feelings, then I recognized that there was an imbalance. And when I started realizing there was an imbalance, I started going inward, because I was looking outward for things to make me happy.
Oh, girl, stop looking at my sheet. You're looking at my sheet.
Hello. You know what we're like.
I just wrote down buy clothes and shoes and party and food. Girl, come on my sheet.
Yeah. I was looking for peace of mind outside of myself.
Yes.
So I thought a relationship would give me that.
Yes.
Food would give me that.
Yes. Clothes
would give me that.
Primark was my best friend, girl. I would go to Primark and just buy the cheap clothes, because I would just go and buy the cheap clothes, Audria, and I would just buy them because I felt that they were going to make me feel good.
My darling, I had 100 pairs of shoes once upon a time, and I was getting rid of shoes, and my younger sister came to visit me, and I was getting rid of 70 pairs of shoes, and I still had a lot of pairs of shoes. So I knew that I was trying to fill a hole within my spirit with physical things, and so that what caused me to realize there's something not quite right
Something's
here.
broken.
I was hoarding.
Yes.
I was hoarding. I was buying cheap things and I was hoarding.
We talked about
I
that.
got called the bargain queen.
We talked about that.
Because I got 10 things.
We talked about that,
And
the
so
hoarding.
I've had to work
Yes.
on myself because I realized there was a hole within me.
Mm.
And I went inside and I had to start questioning this. But I'm not going to say much else because I'm looking at the time.
Yeah, we're gonna wrap up.
Oh
God, this is such a great session.
If you want some more of this
Next
stuff,
week,
we're
Wednesday,
keeping
Friday.
it real here.
Yes.
We're keeping it real.
So Audrey, thank you. I want to wrap up by saying that, I have to talk about the buying clothes and the food. Yours manifested in buying shoes. I was eating myself to comfort. Chocolate, biscuits, everything sweet made me feel good. I was just eating. Now, I realized that one of the other things that was manifesting for me is how I was a parent. I was snappy. And so I want to call you, come forward for those of you who are going around with that void. Those of you who are going around with that void, come to the front. Let's have the conversation. Let's talk about it. There are some of you who are going around and you're partying and you're drinking and you're going on holidays and the Instagram pictures, and it's a void. It's a facade. You are hurting. And we understand it. No heat, no judgment. You have issues in your tissues.
Yep.
And you're trying to fix yourself. But you need to find the tools. And you need to find the people who have walked this journey. We could have walked this path and kept quiet. But the work we do behind the scenes in helping people to activate their voices, to let go, is what brought us to the forefront. We coach people behind the scenes every day.
Yes.
Every day, this is what we do for work.
Yes.
And Audrey and I had a discussion based on some things that we saw in our practice. And we thought, let's bring this forward. All of us have issues in our tissues, but it's what you choose to do. So I'm going to give you 3 things that I did very quickly to wrap this up. I had to write a forgiveness letter, and Audrey taught me to do that. I actually went to her to be my coach. And she said, Ava, you've got to write a forgiveness letter. We're not going to go into that right now. It's a letter of forgiveness to the persons or to self. When Audrey worked with me, we did it either way. I also did a Chinese lantern. I lit the lantern and I released the person. But it has to take the mindset of belief to do it, right? You have to believe. But then you also have to work on your self-confidence, self-esteem, and your self-love. Because when you love yourself more than you love anybody else, you're going to realize that, what happened to me doesn't have to define who I become.
Yes.
I just did a keynote last week, Monday, for Capital One. I just did a keynote for Google. I just trained AstraZeneca. I fly over the world and talk for big banks. I have a meeting now with HSBC and I'm late. And I'm just thinking, I'm late to talk to HSBC because I made a choice. You have got to make a choice that this is going to either define the rest of your life or you're going to decide it will not define the rest of the life. It's totally up to you. I'm going to hand over to my amazing best friend and co-host to tell her last words, and then I'm going to wrap it up. I know it's been heated. We've gone over time, but we'll do this again next week.
We've gone over time.
We have.
Good conversation, We're just keeping it real. Nobody's paying us for giving you these golden nuggets. We just have these things within our hearts that we want to share with the people. We want to share. Now, a lot of people say, why forgiveness? Why am I forgiving anyone? Why am I letting it go? Well, if you listen to me consistently, and especially if you keep tuning in, you will hear me say this. This is very important what I'm about to say, and I will repeat it. Now, why forgive? Why let it go? Because it depends on the level of peace you want in your life.
Absolutely. Yes.
I will always say that. What level of peace do you want in your life? That's the level that you're going to let things go.
Yes. Yes.
You know, if you can't sleep, if you're insomniac, if you're angry, if you're overweight, if you're underweight, if you're whatever, because of what someone has done to you, you are holding on to them, and they've probably moved on, got on with their life. Probably they're not even alive. So you're going to be still angry at a dead person. What I'm saying is, it depends on the level of peace that you want. So from the Forgiveness Godmother, Audrey Joseph, I'm going to send you love, light, and upliftment, and hand the floor back to Dr. Ava Brown.
Wow, Audrey, I just love that. I remember you asking me that question, Ava. What level of peace do you want in your life, honey? Ava, do you want to keep going on stage, making thousands of pounds to speak and train and coach all over the world, and then you don't have that level of peace? And so it goes back to the level of peace that you want in your life. And I chose, you know what? I want to be at peace. I want to be at peace, and I'm not going to allow anybody to steal that from me. And so I want to say to you guys, as we work on this, if there's anybody who this conversation has impacted, or you know of somebody who needs to hear this, send the link along to them. They can follow us on Instagram, tag a friend, share it, because this is free information, and this is applicable. You can just pick it up and use it and just run with it. And don't forget, I'm here to activate your voice and your life. I help you write stories, and some formats that you can tell this is to write your story, because sometimes people will not come to the fore like we are, but they'll say, let me write my story, let me do this, let me do that. Whatever form it takes for you, that's really important that you do that, because there's absolutely no point in dying with these painful situation. For what reason? We no longer need to carry around this heavy load. So come and let us share that burden with you. Let us talk, let's have the discussion, let's continue this conversation under the post, let's comment, tag a friend, share it, pass it along. And we're going to be here every Friday this time, 2:30 GMT and 9:30 EST. Until now, I'm Dr. Ava Eagle Brown, your Activate Your Voice and Your Life specialist. I'm an independent book publisher, a speaker, and an author. But most importantly, I'm joined by my co-host, Audrey Joseph, the Forgiveness Godmother, who's all about teaching you applicable ways of the art of letting go. It's my pleasure. It's our pleasure to have you this week. We were so excited.
Join us again. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for joining us, and join us next week when we continue the same conversation. Have a great weekend. And I suggest you do one thing this weekend to forgive yourself or somebody else. Have a great weekend. Speak to you soon. God bless.